Good afternoon, vinyl community. It's Mike MGK Boston back with another video. Today we're going to take a little trip around the world. We're going to head over to England for 10 great bands. So I did the 10 great bands from the United States this past Friday, and a couple people have done England. Steve over at All the World's a Stage, Glenn Calloway from his basement, who started all this. I've watched a couple of their videos. So everybody's got a different take on it. I'm just going to do like a little disclaimer. This list, you're not going to see the Rolling Stones. You're not going to see Led Zeppelin, although they are great and I have a ton of their stuff in my collection. I just wanted to make the list. I mean, there's so many bands to choose from. Why limit yourself to the super groups, mega groups, giant groups? So anyway, yeah, so I'm going to dive right in on that note. You got these post-punk revolutionary artists here. It's Bauhaus, featuring Daniel Ash, Kevin Haskins, David J., and of course the great Peter Murphy on lead vocals. They do a brilliant version on this one of course, I'll spit it out, David Bowie, his tune Ziggy Stardust. That's a good version on this one. So yeah, I believe this is their second or third studio release. Of course, this is a reissue on compact disc. Picture of the guys right there. So of course the three members outside of, there's Peter Murphy right there, the lead vocalist. The other three guys later after Bauhaus broke up, mid 80s, of course, formed Love and Rockets. And then one of the guys, I can't remember if it was Daniel Ash, maybe, he formed that one-off Tones on Tail. Not sure if it was him or not. Don't quote me on that. So again, in the world of post-punk, it cannot be overlooked. It's Bauhaus, and the name of that album, The Sky's Gone Out. A couple more from Bauhaus. This is of course, they were on the 4AD label. Release date on this one, 1983. Let's see on the inside here. There's the 4AD logo. Yeah, and again, this is an EP. I think there's, what do we got in here? 1, 2, 3. We got 6 songs on here. They do a good version of Brian Eno's Dark Entries. Cool photo on the back, and there's lead vocalist Peter Murphy and the one dude wearing the Eraserhead t-shirt. That's a David Lynch film. All right, another EP here. It's kind of a best of. It's the singles, obviously. Bauhaus 1981 to 83. Of course, this one also. Passion of Lovers is excellent. Of course, Ziggy Stardust, they do a different version of that on this one. And She's in Parties. She's in Parties is really, really excellent track. So that's Bauhaus, kicking off this list of 10 great bands from England. So we're gonna go. I said I wasn't gonna do super mega giant groups, but Steve Winwood is probably one of my favorite musicians, in my top 5. Multi-instrumentalist, exceptionally gifted musician, vocalist, everything. He does it all. And of course, after he formed, he was in the Spencer Davis group when he was just a teenager. He later went on to form Traffic, and here's their debut. Called Mr. Fantasy. I know this has a different cover in the UK, and they might have called it a different name. Can't think of it, but anyway, there's a very young Steve Winwood on the back, and the other guys, Chris Wood and Jim Capaldi. Dave Mason, I guess, wasn't in the band yet because he's not in that photo, but there they are. So that's Traffic. Here's the follow-up. It's self-titled, 1968. Last Exit. This is 1969. John Barleycorn, Must Die. This one, 1970. It's a really good live album you never see. It's called Welcome to the Canteen. This was 1971. Dave Mason had been in the band, and he was out, but then he came back in, and he's on this one too. On backup vocals, lead guitar, and acoustic guitar. So this is a live set. 40,000 Headmen would be the most representative of what these guys were good at. And that clocks in on this one at just 5:52 on that one. They do a over 10-minute, 32-second version on this of Dear Mr. Fantasy, and that's not to be missed. Song, it gets overplayed on classic rock radio, but for a reason, it's really good. And then came The Low Spark of High Heeled Boys, and that's 1971. I don't know why they did this cutout. It's not because it was a cutout like you talk about in the delete bin in a record store. Just the shape. Yeah, it's cut on both corners. Kind of annoying when I file it, but whatever it might be. And there's the guys on the back. Of course, there's Steve Winwood. And that is Traffic coming in at number 9. Again, these are not ranked. I'm terrible at rankings. Again, like I said in my USA video, these bands are all equal in my opinion, although they all do different things, different styles of music. They're here because they're great. And just as with Traffic, here's Spencer Davis Group, Just for Giggles. And this is their debut, Give Me Some Love. And I just thought I'd throw that in for giggles, like I said. Ha, ha, ha. So here we go. Coming in at number 8, we've got The Who. Not going to show all my Who stuff because there's too much of it. Like I said, I didn't say actually at the beginning of this, I'm going to show multi-releases by certain acts, like the Traffic stuff, because just, it's fun to breeze through them like I just did. But The Who, there's just a lot of stuff, and I'm just going to show a couple of my favorite albums. And of course, this one is Who's Next, released in 1971. And right before this, yeah, you've seen this before, Babel O'Reilly, Getting in Tune, Won't Get Fooled Again, etc., etc. This is from 1970, Live at Leeds. This is really good too. I do love a good live album, and this is a really good live album. Magic Bus, My Generation, great version of Shakin' All Over. It features, this is all their 60s stuff on this. Young Man Blues and Substitute rounds out the set. It's really good. And of course, where else was it recorded? Right there in England, in Leeds, to be precise. And this movie soundtrack, this is an excellent rockumentary, if you will. The Kids Are All Right. This came out around, I want to say 1979, just a year after Keith Moon had passed away. And where's Keith here? There he is having a nap. Hard partier. He probably liked to take the odd nap. Big party machine. Everybody knows that if you know The Who. But yeah, this is a really good rockumentary, and this features alternate versions of a lot of their songs on here. Like there's a version of Joined Together that's really good. A quick one, My Wife, that's a John Entwistle song. That's also very good. And yeah, it's you can see here, music from the soundtrack of the movie. And that's The Kids Are All Right. The Who. All right. Sisters of Mercy, if you would call these guys the inventors of goth rock, I don't think you'd be mistaken. They released a series of EPs before they did their first full-length album in 1985. I'm going to get to that. This is from 1983, and this is the Alice EP. These EPs would typically be 3 or 4 songs. This one has 4, and again, there's Alice. That's why this is called the Alice EP, and you can see 1983, and there's their logo, Merciful Release. This is Sisters of Mercy. Goth rock inventors. And this is the Temple of Love EP. Excellent version on here. The Rolling Stones, Gimme Shelter. If you're not familiar with the Sisters of Mercy, look that up. That's a great cover, and it's a Merciful Release 12-inch single or EP. Coming in next, we got the Reptile House EP. Best track on this one would be one called Valentine, 1983, the release. I like how each EP, they'd feature a different color. This one's sort of a violet purple kind of look on it. And on the inside, they always would put that logo right in the center. So that's Sisters of Mercy, Reptile House EP. And the last in that series of EPs, this is the Body and Soul EP. Another track on this you may like is Train or Body Electric. And again, this one, release date on this one, 1983, 84 we're at now, 84. Moving on through the 80s. And there it is. Like I said, their first full length was this one. It's called First and Last and Always from 1985. That's the release date on this one. I'd recommend a song, but every song on this is good. But if I had to pick just one, I'd probably pick the lead singer, the lead off track, and that's Black Planet. They actually have a very good video for that. I like the old videos from the 80s. So there's one for you to look up. Black Planet, the name of that track. From First and Last and Always, that is their first full length record. So the lead guitarist at that point, a guy named Wayne Hussey. Lead vocalist was Andrew Eldritch. Wayne Hussey left and formed The Mission. And some other guy came in, I don't know, the name escapes me, to play lead guitar on this record. And this one was released in 1987. And this, of course, right here, I'm holding in my hands, is Floodland. So on backup vocals, singer Patricia Morrison. Little side note on Patricia. The goth queen, look at her, she's just kind of lurking in the background. Her husband is Dave Vanian from The Damned, if you know The Damned. Those two are a couple, gothic couple, very gothic. Anyway, keep it on topic here. So yeah, this is 1986, 87, the release date on this one. And yeah, and that's Floodland, Sisters of Mercy. And from that album, another big single, this is a 12-inch single for This Corrosion that appears on this album right here. Just try to throw that in. And then later on, after the band was broken up, many years later, like I said, Andrew Eldritch was the man, the brains behind the operation, singer. He put this CD out in 1992, and basically what this does, it captures all of those EPs that I showed. Every single song is captured on this, so of course I bought it for that. I have all those consolidated, and I was buying a lot of CDs at the time, and I still have this one again from 1992. Some Girls Wander by Mistake. That's the Sisters of Mercy. Great stuff. Now, I do show a lot of Bryan Ferry, so I'm not going to show a bunch of all my Roxy Music stuff, but don't believe I've ever shown this one. Their final album together was an album called Avalon, I want to say from 1982. And this was a tour they did, and this particular show, well, these 4 songs were recorded live in Glasgow, Scotland. They do a great version of this, of Jealous Guy by John, that's the John Lennon original. And then a couple, of course, Like a Hurricane too, actually. There's 2 covers on side 2, Like a Hurricane, which is a Neil Young track, and again, like I said, Jealous Guy, the John Lennon song, and then Can't Let Go and My Only Love, that closes it out. Always with the supermodels hanging out with Bryan Ferry. Don't know who this chick is on the front. You can't even see her face, but you get the idea. So anyway, yeah, so Roxy Music were active, of course, about 1970, again to about 1982. And then Bryan Ferry went out on his own and was very successful. I ended up seeing him in 1988 on the Bête Noire tour. One of my favorite concert memories was that show. Really, really excellent. But again, I've shown lots of Bryan Ferry and stuff before, so I don't want to go down the same path and repeat myself. So Roxy Music, again, that one called The High Road. The Chameleons, mentioned these guys before, from Manchester. So Rob Walker, I know Rob Walker, Let the Music Play. He's a big fan. We all know Rob Walker. He always puts together the vinyl tag every January. Thank you for doing that, Rob. And yeah, so these guys are from Robstown, and that's Manchester, England. And this is their debut. It's called Script of the Bridge. This is a 3-song EP, Singing Rule Britannia from 1985. And the follow-up to that first full-length Script of the Bridge, it's called What Does Anything Mean, basically. 1985, the release date on this one, and they were on a label called Static. Only band I've ever seen on that label. So yeah, Singing Rule Britannia, that 12-inch single I just showed, that's pulled from this album on side 1. And their third and final album, it's called Strange Times, and of course purchased here at the late great Record Peddler in Toronto. It would have been a British import at the time. So this one's 1986, and this was the end of the band. Mark Burgess went on to do this, called The Sun and the Moon. It's not very good. Title's in French, so you've got Le Soleil for the sun, and La Lune on the back for the moon. Kind of tarot card artwork. This is just not really very good. I, of course, immediately bought it at the time it was released because I was such a fan of the Chameleons. Now, they are back together, calling themselves the Chameleons Vox. They were supposed to be playing here in Boston in October, but I went to look, and for whatever reason, that show was canceled. I'm 0 for 2. I was bitching about George Thorogood the other day. He's touring everywhere this summer, everywhere but Boston, so I'm looking for something to do this summer. I don't go to a lot of live shows anymore. I'm getting too old, staying up that late, you know, ready for the nursing home here, but looking for something to do, you know, but yeah, I can't go if you cancel the show, all right? Anyway, if you're watching this, Mark Burgess or George Thorogood, come on, come back. And this, speaking of concerts, here they are live in Toronto, the Chameleons in 1987. This was recorded at the RPM Club. That's a club I used to go to when I lived in Toronto briefly in the early 90s. And later on, it was called the Warehouse, and then it was called the Government. I don't even know what it's called now. Big club right down by the lake shore, by Lake Ontario. And this is a live set. Don't know if it's a bootleg, but it's really excellent sound quality on this one. You can see here, recorded at the RPM Club in Toronto, March of 1987. It's from yours truly, CD library. And this covers their whole catalog too. It's a great set. Swamp Thing, Monkeyland, Pleasure and Pain, Singing Rule Britannia, and In Shreds. In Shreds is an excellent single. Really great track. Post-punk pioneers. Really, really not to be missed. And that's the Chameleons. That's why they're on this list, right? And where are we on this list here? What the hell? We're going to go over to these guys right here. The Cult. I know I talk about them all the time, but if you're new to my channel, it'll be new to you, right? So this is they're from their debut album was an album called Dreamtime. I'm not a huge fan of it, but most of it's represented here on this album, live in London at the Lyceum Theatre. And there's the guys on the back right there. Of course, around core members, lead guitarist Billy Duffy and Ian Astbury on lead vocals. There's Ian right there, actually. And the other two sidemen are gone. Matt Sorum, actually, one of the drummer, he later went on to join Guns N' Roses. I don't know if Matt Sorum was the drummer at this point. The Cult was a little like Spinal Tap with drummers. They were coming and going. But anyway, this one was released in 1984. And again, it was the Dreamtime tour. And then the follow-up, I can't find, I had my Love album out. I don't know where it is. So there's that promo on the wall. So that'll count. And from that album, Love, here's a 12-inch single for She Sells Sanctuary. And there's a track called The Snake on the B-side. And yeah, always with the American Indian kind of look going on. And there's the guys on the center. And then the follow-up, they changed producers. This was the first Rick Rubin album. It's called Electric. So I watched this interview, American news magazine called 60 Minutes is a program that airs every Sunday night. It has since I was a child. And they did an interview with Rick Rubin. So I always thought, you know, as a producer, he'd be behind the board, he's doing things, he's guiding the band. No, Rick Rubin, he chills out on a couch and just zones out, and he makes recommendations, if you will. So he doesn't run the board or do anything really technical at all. He plays the role in the background more of an advisor. And yes, if you want to look that up, look up Rick Rubin, 60 Minutes. It's a really excellent piece, 15 or 20 minute segment. And it just kind of shows, you know, all things Rick Rubin, what he's all about. From when he started as a producer, I think he went to NYU in New York City, and he was producing some rap albums out of his dorm room. I mean, it was a very fascinating interview. But anyway, this is the first Rick Rubin album, and again, it's called Electric. Totally reinvented the sound. They went from kind of new wave, gothy, into just a hard driving rock sound. Not a heavy metal sound, make no mistake, this isn't a heavy metal record, but it's definitely got a different tone and vibe to it than the previous Dreamtime and Love did. Yeah, so different style guitar work for Billy Duffy. He plays that white Gretsch guitar, with that unmistakable sound. So when I saw them last summer, you know, when he play anything from the Love album, he'd grab that Gretsch guitar from his guitar tech, and it's a totally different sound. So again, then the follow-up to that was this Sonic Temple. I saw this tour in 1989. And Jason Bonham had a band. It's John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, the drummer, his son, just called Bonham at the time they opened up. And then it was these guys, of course, the Cult. So yeah, American Horse, Edie Chow Baby was on this. And here again, here's a 12-inch single. This was just about the late great actress Edie Sedgwick, and there's pictures of Edie Sedgwick on the back there. It's just a 12-inch single. And then finally, this is when I checked out, 91. This is Ceremony again. And after this, I kind of checked out on the Cult, any newer studio material. And of course, they broke up for a long time and then got back together. But they did put an album out last year for the tour. I only know 1 or 2 tracks from it. I got to dig in a little and see what that's like. I just watched Gary again giving Gary all kinds of plugs today. I don't know if he deserves them, but here's another one. Gary at Physical Format. He went to the record store day, and I don't do a lot of record store day stuff, but he picked up that Cult album from 2022. So just on that alone, that recommendation, I know I'm going to have to dig in and try to find out more about that. So that's the Cult. I'm not sure where I'm at on this list, but we're getting about to the halfway point. So again, I said I wasn't doing like big giant groups, but then I showed Traffic. Well, my favorite drummer of all time is Ginger Baker, so Cream's coming in on this video. This is Fresh Cream. This is their debut from 1966. The follow-up, Disraeli Gears. Release date on that one, 1967. Just really, really psychedelic artwork. Really, really awesome. Yeah, if you ever get a chance, I don't know where it's streaming. I saw it a year or two ago. It's the Beware of Mr. Baker. It's called Beware of Mr. Baker. I'll repeat that. Documentary on Ginger Baker, just a complete lunatic. He's dead now. He died a few years ago, before the pandemic anyway. But yeah, it's called Beware of Mr. Baker. Highly entertaining documentary. Really funny. And again, this one, Wheels of Fire, the release date on this one, 1968, on the front and the back. And it's Goodbye Cream. There's the guys right there on the front. Like I said, there's Ginger Baker right there, and Eric Clapton in the middle, and Jack Bruce on bass guitar. Real showmen that they were. And yeah, Politician would be the one I'd pick on this one to look up. Badge is pretty good too. And like I said, I do enjoy a good live album. And here's one right here. This is Live Cream. And that's closed it out for Cream. In between things, you had Eric Clapton do the one-off Blind Faith. Him and Ginger Baker did that with Steve Winwood. And then they all went their own ways and did other stuff. And anyway, yeah, Steve Winwood finished with Traffic. And then, of course, he had his illustrious solo career, which continues to this date. But I'm veering off topic. This is Cream. This is Live Cream. And it's from 1970. And that closes out. I'm a completist with Cream. There I have it all. And not to be outdone, what the hell? Here's a Jack Bruce solo album too, Songs for a Tailor. This was released during his time in Cream concurrently. And again, it's called Songs for a Tailor. And the release date on that was 1969 on Atlantic. So it's Jack Bruce, excellent bass player and a really good singer in his own right as well. Him and Clapton would trade off on the vocals, if you weren't aware of that. And where are we at here? Coming in at number 2, holy moly. It's The Clash, Sandinista, triple set. This is the follow-up to their double album, London Calling, released in 1979, I believe. This was 1980. I'm a big fan of The Clash. I'm not going to show all my Clash stuff because it's been done before. Recently, if you're not familiar with the YouTube TV program, I'm calling it, Spin on This, Mike, PC31, the Vinyl Policeman, was given the challenge, and he ended up, I forget what his choices were, but I believe he went with London Calling, not Sandinista, but he went with London Calling. So I didn't want to show that one. It was pretty fresh, so I thought I'd pull this one out. Like I said, it's a triple. A lot of reggae nuances throughout this, and that's all right with me. I'm a big fan, and reggae and dub both. So let's see it on the inside here. There's a nice booklet with this one too, yeah. So I bought this years ago when it came out. It's the Armageddon Times right there. Just lyric sheet on the inside here. You know, black and white photos, that kind of thing. But again, Clash coming in at number 2 on these great British acts. Of course, from England. That's where British people come from. It's number 2. All right. Oh, and back to the Cult. This was sitting here on the floor. I missed it. So between my seasonal allergies are killing me. I keep itching my nose here. It's a nightmare. So between Love and Electric, they did five tracks that were going to appear on the Electric album, and those are right here. You got Love Removal Machine, Wildflowers, Electric Ocean, Outlaws, and Bad Fun. They did these with the producer from Love and Dreamtime first, and I really, really like the sound of this. I believe this has never been re-released on vinyl. This is just it's called the Manor Sessions. You can see that sort of, sorry about that reflection. The Manor Sessions, really essential if you're a cult fan like I am. It's like, so when you hear with the Rick Rubin sound versus this, dare to compare. They're both good, but if I had to choose, I'm going right here. Anyway, sorry to back up on you folks to the Cult. All right, and number 1, and again, by no fault of her own, but here she is. Susie and the Banshees right here. This is a collection right here, Once Upon a Time, the singles. This is pulled from their stuff from 1979 to 1981. Of course, they were around. Susie Sue worked at Malcolm McLaren's sex shop, so she was hanging out with the Sex Pistols and all the other hangers-on at the time. Part of the whole, the original punk movement in London, and Susie Sue, and then she formed the Susie and the Banshees, right? So anyway, Hong Kong Gardens on this, Playground Twist, Happy House, Christine. Israel's a really good one too. You can look up, there's actually a video for that one. There's the track listing on the back. I don't know on the inside if there's any old photos of the band. Yeah, got this just sort of collage thing. Mostly pictures of Susie Sue. I mentioned a goth queen. That would be her. Total knockout too. Again, like I say about some of these women in music, if she didn't have a career as a vocalist, could have been a supermodel easily. Right here we have Hyena. Special guest on this one from The Cure, Robert Smith plays guitar on this one. Dazzle's a great single on this one. Bring Me the Head of the Preacher Man. And Belladonna. Belladonna is just a beautiful song. And again, the release date on this one, 1984. It's a 12-inch single, Cities and Dust. This is from their 1985 full-length called Tinderbox. I did have a copy of Tinderbox. I don't know where that is. I was a little disappointed because I was going to show Tinderbox and then show this, but what are you going to do? There's the band on the back. There's Susie Sue right there. It's a great alternate version of Cities and Dust. It's an excellent track. And there's two versions of it on here. You've got the extended Eruption mix, and of course then just the regular 7-inch version on the B side of this 12-inch single. So that is Susie and the Banshees, Cities and Dust. Did this album, it was all cover versions. It's called Through the Looking Glass right here. Do a version of The Doors, Your Lost Little Girl, Iggy Pop's The Passenger. They do a really good version of that. There's Susie right there again. Steve Severin and Budgie, and I forget the other guy's name in the band. If there's anything here on the inside, no, just not much on the inner sleeve there, but yeah, that's again called Through the Looking Glass. And lastly, this is Peep Show. This is the only tour I ever saw them on. Saw this show in Montreal in 1989. I remember it was super cold and it was snowing like a bitch. I went to drive. My buddy had this old beater car. I was at university at the time in Ottawa, and it was about, on a good day, that's about a 90-minute car ride, but it took us almost 4 hours. We almost didn't get to the concert. And by the time we come out of the concert, we ended up getting a hotel because the roads were too crappy to come back to Ottawa. I remember that like it was yesterday. And of course, the big single on this one is called Peekaboo. But there's just some other great moments on here. Ornaments of Gold, Turn to Stone, The Last Beat of My Heart. Yeah, that's just a really good song live. Last Beat of My Heart, it's a ballad. So anyway, yeah, and lastly, that's not it for Susie. I got one more. This is from 1991, and this again is called Superstition. There's a good photo of her right there. And there's the guys right there, the sidemen. Photo on the inside, there she is. On the plain CD, they've got the pink star. It's kind of cool. So yeah, again, on this one, if you were to look up any, Drifter's good. Kiss Them For Me, it was the big single from this. And Silly Thing, that's a good one too. That's kind of a fast-paced, like kind of almost like a pop alternative track. And yeah, they were on the Geffen label. So that's going to round things out. I went a little long today, but what the hell, it's Sunday. Nothing better to do. And it's a rainy, crappy day here, so it was time to do this video. Kind of feel like I'm in Northern England. It's dreary and overcast, and it's raining. So anyway, perfect, sets the tone, right? So that's going to be my list of 10 great bands from across the pond, England. So maybe next, for my friends down under, John at Down Under Tunage and my friend Ben Rankin's King of Shirts. I'll do an Australia one, but I can't dig as deep as those guys do. I just don't have the deep cuts from Australia, but maybe I'll do an Australian video. That's the next country to conquer musically here. So anyway, folks, hope you're having a good one wherever you are. Hope the sun is shining wherever you are. It will again in New England. The weather's a roller coaster here. What are you going to do? But that's going to do it, folks. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again.